Hi, thank you for joining me today. My name is Cassandra Dinkman and I'm the Education Support Officer at Down Syndrome Queensland. Today's webinar is Inclusive Practices. If you have any questions, email me edsupport@downsyndromeqld.org.au or phone the office 3356 6655. Thank you and enjoy. In this webinar, we will explain why a truly inclusive educational environment is always preferable for students with a disability. It will outline the obligations of schools to include students with a disability and discuss practical tactics on how this can be done to the greatest benefit of all involved. It will include anecdotes and real-life experiences illustrating best practice in action. This webinar will demonstrate that inclusion is not a pie-in-the-sky idea, but one that is achievable, benefits all, and should be the goal of every classroom and school. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional and historic custodians of the land on which I present from today, the Yagara people of Brisbane. I extend my acknowledgement to all First Nations people here today and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. This is a map of where we should see inclusion, including assumed competence, high expectations, and a culture of inclusion in all areas, home and family, and within the community. Within the community, inclusion should be seen in employment, social aspects such as sports, groups or clubs, and activities and hobbies. Within education, inclusion should be seen all the way from early childhood education and kindy to primary school, secondary school, and further education. Within education, that would involve teaching practices, environment, outside of school hours care, and extracurricular activities. We will be focusing on inclusion within schools, particularly focusing on teaching and environment. Looking back and moving forward. So these models are what we have gone from and what we're moving towards. Exclusion, where people with disabilities were totally excluded from any form of education, often placed in homes or institutes or colonies to live. They were trained to complete low-skill work or not at all. People with disabilities were often denied choice, autonomy, dignity, and respect, and were often neglected and abused with the justification of the views held by those in authority. Segregation, in some circumstances, this is still happening. So the first special schools were established in the 1950s, and the focus there was on low skill training rather than a full education. They were setting the students up for a life of low expectations, and the view was that they don't contribute to society. So there we go. Integration, this is continuing to occur in some settings. So there's a recognition that all students, regardless of ability, deserve an education. However, teachers are unsure of best practice and appropriate strategies. The educators have inadequate knowledge and training. There's a lack of resources, a lack of school support. The view is that students with disabilities are hindering others in their learning space. There was a focus on the social side of including students rather than including students in all aspects. And there was the use of taking students out, so the pull-out model. Students were often absent from general classroom much of the time. And then working more towards inclusion is what we're aiming for, where all students are part of all aspects of school life. Inclusive education. So what is it? It's when all students are fully included in the local age equivalent mainstream classroom, accessing the year level curriculum. This flyer that I've got with you now says age appropriate, but the correct language is age equivalent. So inclusive education has shown to result in better academic progress at no expense to other students, greater student engagement, better communication ability and social skills. It enhances teaching strategies because they're often engaging in more inclusive practices, so differentiated teaching practices. There's high expectations for all and value for human life. So embedded in all areas of inclusive education, there needs to be culture shift, high expectations, and assumed competence. Let's just go through those then. So a cultural shift is where all individuals believe in and acknowledge that inclusive education experiences are best for all students. And this needs to be a top-down approach where principals, deputies, HODs, inclusion coaches, behaviour specialists, all staff and volunteers within that setting recognise and strive for true inclusion. And high expectations. All individuals from home or school and even the student have high expectations of the students with disabilities. All involved recognise that students with disability can and will learn, and that they're constantly striving to be more, to do more and to learn more. That teachers don't take the easy road by constantly offering tasks the student knows how to do, but always pushing students a bit further. And finally, assumed competence. So infantilism is a term that we hear a lot. So due to an intellectual disability, individuals tend to be treated as young children and never allowed to grow up. So not be able to show their abilities or reach their full potential. You might have also heard somebody referring to a person's mental age, and this is something that's no longer deemed appropriate. For this reason, everything we discussed today has the underpinning understanding that we should always strive for culture shift, high expectations, and assumed competence. Moving on to home then. As educators, it's imperative that we recognise and respect the impact and influence that families have on their children. They are the most important and influential individuals in the life of a student with a disability. For this reason alone, the relationship that we cultivate with the family is imperative. Taking that time to foster positive relationships with families of all students needs to be intentional and from the outset. Acknowledging families as one of the most important influences in the child's life, but also the individual who's going to know the student best. Their health issues, behaviour concerns, communication methods, friendship groups, and so much more. Parents and caregivers can sometimes be overlooked, not included in decision-making, or even have their thoughts and ideas dismissed. True inclusion is about creating a community where all individuals are considered, accepted, listened to, and acknowledged. So for that reason alone, parents and families need to be valued and need to feel valued. Often families are only approached when there's an issue in a reactive manner, letting them know what their child has done wrong. This sets a tone to the relationship and places blame and responsibility for the student's behaviour solely on the parents. So what I would suggest to you is that we need to keep communication with home open at all times through incidental conversations, praise points, relaying information, and ensure that the family is meaningfully involved in aspects of school life. To ensure that family is involved in planning aspects such as ICPs, and behaviour and praise, and show the family that their knowledge of the student is valued. So then community. Community is referring to the school and immediate community around the school. It might include local police, P&C, elders from the community, but inclusion is accomplished when community feels or values diversity, when they're cultivating a culture of acceptance and all individuals through creating environments or experiences which include adjustments to include all people in all aspects. All for all. And so in school, at the school level, we're aiming for a top-down culture, as I said before, from the principal down, including every member of staff and volunteers in the school. If it's not the case, we can start with anyone, but it's best implemented starting at the top. So having a diverse workforce is important too. We know of schools who have students with Down syndrome and decided that they also need a member of staff with Down syndrome. Don't let that be your stopping point. Students need to see diversity in staff so that they can better understand the value of diversity. Diversity in the workplace has been shown to increase productivity and creativity across staff, to improve cultural awareness across the school community. It builds a positive reputation for the school and makes the school more desirable in terms of relatability and welcoming all. When providing inclusive opportunities within a school community, we need to ensure that we include all aspects, such as sports, drama, arts, and any other extracurricular activity, such as outside of school hours care. At my son's school, for example, we identified social skills as an area to work on, and outside of school hours care has been beneficial in supporting him in this area. The team provide extra support for him, and he loves the opportunity to socialise with so many students. In fact, it's made our end of day goodbyes quite a lot longer because he feels a sense of duty to saying goodbye to every single person, which is lovely. And this brings me to whole school training. So, and the importance of that. Every staff member and volunteer should take part in training that shares the importance of including all students in a meaningful and productive way, which will then make it easier to have explicit teaching expectations, making sure that everyone understands exactly, explicitly what it is that you're doing and why. And looking at the environment. So we'll start in the classroom environment. We need to ensure that students have access to the classroom. So things such as space around the tables or the workstations, that the seating and tables are suitable, reinforcing classroom timetables and expectations with visual support such as schedules, group setups, class rules or expectations, we do have a webinar that looks specifically at visual supports in more detail, and a range of free visual downloads in the shop on our website for free. But students with Down syndrome have strong visual memories, and 65% of the population are visual learners. So by incorporating these, you'll be positively impacting many students, not just those with Down syndrome. Sensory considerations within the classroom. It might be as simple as lighting, noise, temperature, even placement for students within the classroom. But we also need to consider the additions that we bring to a classroom. So sure, a beautifully decorated classroom is lovely, but can instantly overload a student. So this is when you would need to take it back to displays that are meaningful to the students, only the displays that are meaningful to the students, sharing only those things that they've been part of creating or learning. Reducing the amount of visual stimulation can help to reduce unwanted behaviours, such as running or hiding or refusal. And in terms of flexibility, be aware of what works and doesn't work for your students, and work on positively enhancing the environment for all. You might have heard of flexible or agile learning spaces too, so we'll just have a quick look at that. A space that is intentionally being designed to be adjustable, exchangeable, and movable. So flexible learning spaces are becoming more common, and more so in universities or libraries. The idea is that we create spaces that are adjustable, exchangeable, and movable. And in the pictures here, so at the top left, we have an example of a traditional, very old traditional, I hope, classroom space, and then two examples of agile spaces down the bottom, where the students are able to choose how and where they are positioned during classroom time. So that might include things such as tables or desks, lap tables, cushions, stools, chairs, gym balls, couches. Okay, and then what we're really looking for is promoting curiosity and freedom to engage with content in the way that suits the students best. So this provides the students with the opportunity to choose what is most effective for their learning experience. Oh, I had hoped that it would show all of them together. All right. But you get the idea anyway of agile learning spaces. So here is a short video produced by Down Syndrome Queensland in conjunction with Griffith Film School and Pullenvale State School. So it's showcasing the difference between integration, perceived inclusion, and true inclusion in a classroom environment. Pullenvale State School is itself well on the journey to true inclusion and kindly participated in this video to help grow the understanding of what schools should be striving for. Just put that on for you now.
I don't understand why I'm at the back of the class. I wish I was like everyone else. I want to do what they're doing. But here I am, doing the same old number activity, watching as my classmates learn something else. Don't they know that they're setting me up to fail? Don't they know they hold my future in their hands? I want to work with my class, learn what they are learning, and do the activities they do. But here I am, stuck at the back, limited by low expectations. Having a one-on-one teacher aide just teaches me to rely on them and means I get less attention from the teacher. I am not included in the classroom. I am in the same room but segregated from my peers, sat to the side or back, working on different things and missing out. I want to be free to learn with my peers, reach my full potential and be seen to be like everyone else. I need something to change. You may be wondering what was wrong with this picture. I am in the classroom with my peers, sitting in my seat, learning the same things as everyone else. You may think this is inclusion, but it's not. I am stifled, limited, and held back from reaching my full potential. Though I love my teacher aide, I don't get to think for myself. In fact, a lot of the time, my teacher aide does it for me, even whispering the answer in my ear when I already know it. The more she is with me, the more I realize that there is no point in me thinking for myself because she will give me the answer anyway. I'm sure there are other kids who also need her help. Does she need to be with me? Can't she help others? Surely if I need help, I can put my hand up and ask my teacher like my friends do. My friends and classmates want to help me, but by having someone right next to me, they can't. I need to learn from my peers, be able to do group work and be challenged. I want to be allowed to fail or succeed and learn from it. I need something to change. Can you find me in the crowd? Inclusion is more than just a word. It is a culture, a mindset, and an expectation that everyone can and will learn and succeed along their age-appropriate peers. I know it can be challenging to include me in the learning as sometimes I might require extra resources and information, but giving me space to learn from my teacher and peers is the best way to challenge me and allow me to grow. I want to learn the same things as my classmates, and I want teachers to have the same expectations of me as my friends. My learning may need to be modified, but I still want the opportunity to show what I can do, not focus on what I can't. Treat me the same as any other student and watch me flourish. I will rise to the challenge of expectations you set for me. Are you ready to really include me?
Okay, so teaching practices. Whatever we're doing within the classroom, we must ensure that all students are able to access quality, differentiated teaching, which generally appears or generally happens using a range of teaching styles. And that includes things such as rotations, co-teaching, flipped classrooms, peer tutoring or mentoring, utilising technology, and explicit teaching instructions. And these are all aspects of UDL, Universal Design for Learning. So UDL is a teaching frame that was first implemented in the design world. Barriers were moved before the problem arose to allow access to all areas for all individuals. For example, building a ramp for somebody in a wheelchair also helps somebody with a pram. So you can find out more about UDL on the website on the screen, www.cast.org. A short explanation of UDL. So universal design originated in the architectural world, giving universal access to buildings and structures. So universal design was applied to education to ensure that all individuals are given the same access to learning. It can and should be applied in all educational experiences, and gives a level playing field to all. UDL in a classroom setting is using a variety of teaching methods to remove any barriers to learning and give all students equal opportunities to succeed. It's about building in that flexibility that can be adjusted for every student's strengths and needs. UDL is based on neuroscience and the way that we learn. So the different parts of the brain do different things, and in order to create meaningful understanding and lifelong learning, we need to engage them all. And the framework consists of 3 areas, which includes representation as recognition, action and expression as strategic, and engagement as effective. So let's just have a look at those now. So these are the UDL principles. Engagement, we all have different ways of engaging with activities or being motivated to learn. So allowing students multiple ways to engage in the learning. Aspects that would impact engagement might include things such as prior knowledge, neurological makeup, culture, a person's background, and the relevance of the information that is being shared. So some students, that may mean it's most effective to stick to a routine, a procedure or delivery, but for others that might mean a variety in delivery, excitement, working alone or as a group, which is where offering flexibility allows students the opportunity to do what works best for them. Action and expression is allowing students multiple ways to express and demonstrate their learning. So for example, an end of unit assignment won't just be an essay, it'll be anything from creating a poster, short video, multiple choice or short answer questions, presenting a dramatisation or website, portfolios, journals, blogs, self-assessments. The list is endless, but offering choice and flexibility. And then finally, representation. So the way the learner perceives and comprehends the information, representing the information to the student in a variety of ways, not just chalk and talk, or as they used to say, or death by PowerPoint, rather a selection of ways that enables them to feel interested, motivated, engaged, including all styles of learning. This will ensure that students make a connection between the concepts and apply information to consolidate higher order thinking. So we're using discussion groups, mind maps, visual representation, videos, technology, adapted technology, flipped classroom strategies. The list goes on. Offering these options to all students, not just those with a disability, and by offering that choice to students, you're likely to see higher interest or engagement and dedication to learning because there's a feeling of ownership over the learning that's taking place. So perceived barriers to inclusion. I'll just leave these up on the screen for a second. You may have seen some of these yourself. So hesitation, and that could come from the school or the parents. Attitudes, having low expectations or seeing children with disabilities as a burden. Maybe it's teacher training that's lacking or inadequate supports. Time and resources is one we hear a lot. So adjusting the learning outcomes takes a lot of time or is perceived to take a lot of time, and adaptive technologies can be time consuming or can be perceived to be time consuming. Collaborative partnerships, so working with teachers and admin and parents, that can take up lots of, or that can cause barriers. And flexibility, so within the classroom and within the curriculum, can be perceived as issues as well. Reasonable adjustments. So reasonable adjustments will be made when necessary, where necessary, so that the students with disability are treated on the same basis as a student without the disability. This is an area that we suggest you look into further. You'll find useful information on the NCCD portal, and it even has case studies to look at, for example. You don't have to be a teacher to access some of the great information that they have available, but definitely worth a look. We will know that inclusive education has really become embedded in our culture when the term becomes obsolete. I look forward to that day. Okay. Any questions? Thank you for registering. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My email address will be at the end, as will my office phone number. I have included some references for you just here. I can send those on to you if you'd like to know more about them. And here's my final thank you. So, out of interest, the picture on the right is my beautiful son. A few years ago now, but my son nonetheless. Don't forget, we have free webinars on a range of topics, free resources on our website in the shop, Facebook posts and resource snapshots. We've got events and programs that are available as well. So have a look on our website and you'll find out more about those, or our Facebook page. We have our professional teaching cluster that gets together for more information and support. And we have prep packs available for any teachers teaching students in prep only, I'm afraid. Our next webinar is the 12th of May at 3:30, and that is an information session about reading our way. Thank you very much for joining me. Goodbye.